Hi everyone, welcome to Lit Up 365 Spring Session 4. I am so excited to be this deep into spring. We're nearing that time where we're ready to just start creating. And so what we're talking about today is the universal law of least resistance. This is a law of physics, and I love the concept of it as we move into how do we move forward and not move into a controlling space. So a lot of the issue we have is we tend to either just want to completely let go of things and wait for some universal response, whether it's other people or a deity or something else to take care of our lives, or we want to try and control everything. And there's this beautiful balance in between, and that's what we're going to talk about today. So as we talk about least resistance, what we're talking about here is how to bring this vision we've discussed into fruition. So we've had winter and we've had our seed cultivating, and now that seed is showing life, right? And so we want to bring that into full fruition in the fall by working on it in the summer, but we want to do the right kind of work. If we're not working in the right way, we can actually cause more detriment than we do facilitate the full fruition of something. So we've talked about vision, right? We've talked about our mission. We've created a path. Our vision is our why, our internal why, something we can't fully comprehend. The place that we'll land. Our mission is how do we get there? And so we develop this concrete action plan, but it can only be so concrete. Otherwise it becomes limiting. So I want to return to plants for an analogy today. As we move into the summer months, we will be maintaining and nurturing and fostering those plants. We'll be pruning them and directing some growth. And we're going to talk about throughout the summer and moving into summer how we support that growth, how we can create some direction without stifling or eventually even potentially doing severe damage to what we're growing. So if you think of a plant, if you prune it too much, if you try to direct its growth too much, you can kill the plant. And we want to start looking at what we're creating, this new creation. So whatever our vision is, that new life, that new identity we're creating, we want to connect that to this plant analogy. So right now we're still in spring. We're still preparing the plant for success. So we're seeing its potential. We're seeing blossoms, right? We're clearing the ground and making room for what it will become. And there is this feeling, and this morning I thought of it like a cat stretching, like my cat went, or even my dogs do it when they first wake up. They do this stretch, or when they don't want to do something, when I'm calling them to do something, they'll stop and do a stretch, right? We're awake now. We're in the middle of that stretch. We're awake. We're not in the cave. We're out of the cave. We've burst forth. But right now, we're in our stretch. We're stretching ourselves, and we're preparing to stand and go outside and do the work. And so it's like that morning time. Spring, relative to the day, to the 24-hour period, is morning. It's the new dawn. And so we're now stretching into that new possibility. And to go forward, we need clear vision while we support the plant's growth. So again, return to that plant analogy. Tigger, down. Tigger, leave it. Imagine that plant now, and you have a plant. You have a vision for that plant. You know how tall you want it to be and how much space you want it to take and which direction you want it to grow. So think of a plant in your garden and the fact that you want to manage the growth of that plant in some way. So you're holding the vision and you're taking action, right? Throughout the summer, you might do some pruning. You might block some areas off to cause it to grow in a certain direction. You might give it support like we do with new trees. but you can't completely control the path of that plant. This is where we're doing what I call continuing articulation. And I talk about this a lot in meditation. The meditation without articulation yields no results. So this is about the act of articulation. So in meditation, we're articulating with words. Now we're going to articulate our path with action, right? So I want to talk about the importance of articulation. So we want to make sure. So if you're trying to articulate something to someone, you want to be careful to use the correct words that we've agreed to a definition on, right? This is what the dictionary is it's the bounds of a word that says this word means this specific thing. So when I say this specific thing to you, then you hear a specific thing. Now, we all get our own opinions of words. This is one of the reasons why I like to look words up in the dictionary, because I like to have an accurate articulation of that word if I can. There are words I haven't looked up, so I am possibly still misunderstanding their definition. But if I understand the definition of a word and you understand the definition of a word, I can use that word to communicate with you. And this is really nice. It gives us structure, so there's not just a constant misunderstanding. So the importance of articulation in our action is the same. We want to speak into our life by physical actions, by the things we say, by the consciousnesses we hold, what life we're creating. So we're going to do an exercise this week called the power of a sentence. And this will be really about articulating, get a clear articulation of what you're going to create. So now you have your vision for the plant, right? So now you have your vision for the plant. Now, this week we're talking about our resistance, the path of least resistance, right? This is what we're working on over the next 2 weeks, actually. So least resistance means we are not going to now try and control. We're not going to try and direct every little thing the plant does. To create a least resistant opportunity, we must allow for observation. So this is concept of like controlling the flow of water. Anyone that controls the flow of water will tell you that it is complicated and it is difficult because of erosion. You look at the beautiful Utah, and a lot of the beautiful scenery here is caused by the erosion of water over time. And wind does the same thing. It's that nature wants to move in a certain way. And if we cause it to not move that way, there's going to be erosion. There's going to be friction there. And this is resistance. These things are resistance. So the more we try to control, the more resistance we create. So the plant doesn't do as well, right? So we need to get into this balance. So now let's take this plant and put it back into vision. So say that I'm creating a vision. So I've developed a brand new vision this week, and people know about that. So that vision that I have, that thing I want to create, right? I need to hold a clear vision that says I am creating this. But we have this end path and we're starting here. I don't know any of this, and I have to take it one step at a time. And this is where I get into that, where I take that flow I talk about. The water doesn't just flow in a straight line. Think of it as flow as ocean. We're going to talk a lot about flow in the next session. Flow is the ocean. 2 steps forward, 1 step back. 2 steps forward, 1 step back, right? This is how the tide comes in. It's a rhythmic flow. It's a rocking motion. And this step back is to observe. So this is how we're going to move through our path of least resistance. I'm going to step forward, right? I'm going to see Antius. Get out of there. Antius. Dang it. You're not listening to me. Stop it. No. That'll ruin though. Don't ruin it. Okay. So this always begins with observation. So the pause is always first. we pause, we observe the opportunities. What steps can I take? What lanes are open? What possibilities are there? Think of watching rain on your windshield and how the drops form, and then there's a point where they come together and they follow a path. They're moving. They're not going in a straight line. So what we have is we have this pause, and then we observe and we go, oh, you know what? This is my next step. We take that step and then we pause again. We tend to want to take that step and just go for it. And then we move really far in the wrong direction because step 1 was this way and we keep going this way, where step 2 was this way. And then step 3 was this way. And then step 4 was this way. And step 5 was this way. Well, I'm here. I've landed clear over here when I really should have been here because I'm going too far ahead, right? So we want to have a focal point and then be able to adjust that rudder. And so we're going to do something here. So what we're going to do is I'm going to teach you healthy affirmation. And this is funny, right? Linda's doing affirmations, right? Because I talk about why affirmations don't work. And I've talked about that before, right? So when we talk about, there's this concept with crabs that if you put them all in a container together and one of the crabs starts to find a way out of the container, the other crabs will pull it back in. They won't let it progress. And our brain can do this to us. So if we affirm something, so we want to move towards something we don't believe we can have yet. We want to reach for the stars. But the minute we make a statement that we already exist in those stars, the brain will argue it, and it'll be those crabs pulling that one crab back in, right? So what we really want to do is have that end point as a focal point, but our focus remains on what am I going to do today? What one thing am I going to do today? And I'm going to allow that thing I'm going to do to be observation. Right? When ships have a bearing, they're doing course correction based off of the bearing, and they have to observe where they are to know how to correct. They don't just say, well, I want to go this way and end up over here. They say, no, that's my bearing and I'm going this way, but maybe I'm veering off. Oh, correct. Because what we want to do is, again, return to natural evolutionary cycles. Allow ourselves to be in line with the intelligence of nature. We're really looking at that, lining up with natural intelligence. And we do this through surrender, right? That pause to observe is surrendering to the experience so that we can hold the vision, but we're not bound by the vision. So our homework is going to be digging into questions like, what intention can you set today? Can you surrender to let the mind work its magic, right? So this will be a process that we do. And this is really cool. So there's this concept of affirmation I'd like to share with you. There is this conversation of affirmation I'd like to share with you. And this was a huge realization for me, where I realized my source is within. I have to So there's one more thing I'd like to address as we look to this concept of affirmation, and that is where the source is. So I'm talking about where you need to take a step and then observe, but you're not necessarily observing the world. You're observing the process, and then you're making a decision that comes from within on where to go next. Now, sometimes other people can prompt our decisions. I've done a lot of classes lately, and it's information from other people that help me, but I always take information I get from others and I process it within myself. We right? And realize nothing outside of me organizes my life. When I set intention, my own thoughts access unlimited potential to calculate a solution, even if I don't believe it's possible, right? So when I'm setting this intention, when I'm affirming this concept, when I'm moving towards something, my thoughts are what are going to get me there, but I can't use the thoughts I already have. I need to reach into that unlimited potential of the right brain to calculate my solution. And I can do that even if I don't believe it's possible. So I'm going to say that again. When we set intentions, our souls access unlimited potential to receive a solution. And what we're doing now is we're using that supercomputer in the cerebellum, and we're counting on it to reveal information from us. We don't need to teach our brain how to function. We need to allow our brain, lay down, good boy. We need to allow our brain to teach us how to get there. I talk about this all the time. Every desire we have, we only desire it because it's possible. The only reason we don't have it is because we don't know how to realize the possibility, to bring forth the potential. So if we know it's possible in the subconscious mind drives the desire. We have the desire because it's possible. We now show us how to get there because it's what told us it was possible.